Start. Hello, I'm talking and interviewing Preston Knodell, who was at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge during the occupation, and I just thought I would interview him. So, if you could give me an account of what happened, please.
Okay, I came up from San Antonio, Texas. I arrived, I believe, on the 14th or 15th of January. Um, I more or less, fit in with the group, as best I could. I think we all kind of consider ourselves to just be camping out there. We have our weapons for protection. Um, the it's I'd say I'm used to Oath Keeper Camp. I've been to another operation over for the Sugar Pine Mine about 8 months ago, and that Oath Keeper Camp is more organized, more military like. Um, the Bundy Camp a little bit different. There's more children, more women around. It's at the same time it's more open. They are more constitutionally based. Well, I take that, not more constitutional, but they're constitutionally based. They allow the press, freely on the campsite, um, and weren't shy about having press, come on and interview in most cases. The let's see, in that respect, the freedom of movement of the press and others to come on the camp is different than an Oath Keeper operation and most militia operations that I've seen. Um, that's basics of it. I tried to blend in best I could. I wasn't part of any squad crew or anything. Just kind of floated around, helped as I could. I've got I'm an electrical engineer by trade. 52 years old. I worked for a number of companies in the past: Coors, Graphic Packaging, Crown Cork and Seal, Alcoa, Foil Products. I was also trained, roughly 1/3 trained by Golden Aluminum in the past. Also, that was a Coors spin-off company years ago in the 90s. So I was one of the few there that had some medical background. I think of all the people there was only 3 of us that had medical. One was a guy that was ex-Army, myself, and another gentleman. He had some nursing education about 20 years ago also. So we were going to be kind of the medical crew that, in case something happened, we were going to be the ones help patch him up and get him outside to another evac casualty center that was set up by some Oath Keepers out of northern Nevada. That pretty much explains my role there, I believe.
Yeah. And what type of interactions did you have with Ammon Bundy and the other people?
Well, as far as the leadership, I mean, I was a little further down the rank. I didn't interface with them directly in any way. Um, I did talk to Dwayne a lot, the guy that rode the horse. The only time I would see the Bundys, because they were doing other meetings and reaching out to other ranchers and so forth. The only time I would see them is usually in the evening, about 7 o'clock or a little bit later when they would come in to eat on the evening meal. I can't say I really, really knew him well or anything. I mean, we did chat for short periods, shake hands and so forth, but I can't say I really know him. They are very religious. At every meal there was prayer. Um, we usually prayed on one knee, which I understand is referred to as Bundy style. I don't know really where that comes from myself, but I just considered most of the people there, to be good Christian soldiers in a lot of ways.
Did you have much interaction with LeBoy Finicum?
Very, very, in the same way with the Bundys, he was kind of in the leadership role. So, I mean, I did talk to him a few times shortly. He was interested in me being from San Antonio because I believe some of his ancestors had a lot to do with the Alamo. I believe the last name was Bonham, he might have been like a messenger or a courier at the time of that battle. So there was a little bit in common there. So he was interested. I come so far away also.
And I understand that you people cleaned up some of the buildings there.
That's correct. Yeah, I wasn't there when they cleaned up the majority of them. They found a lot of, essentially it looked like they'd just been sitting there for years. A lot of rat feces. I know up in the tower, they said there was like a 3 or 4 inch cake of, owl crap and whatever else is up there, and all kinds of graffiti going back into the 40s. Um, the one building I did kind of assist with was I guess you call it like a maintenance shop, but it was just really dusty. It didn't look like much had gone on there for quite a while. A lot of the tools were, while they might have been, oily, had so much dust on them that it just didn't look like much had been done in a long time. Most of the shops I'm familiar with from, working in the past in the plant, they might be dirty and all, but, you're looking at fresh grease and so forth, and you could tell that they're being used. A lot of the vehicle had just a lot of trash in it. It didn't look like it had been operated in a long time. Either it hadn't been operated in a long time, or they're not very clean. Their cleanliness needs to improve.
And did you carry any weapons with you at the time?
Yes, I did. I had my pistol with me. It was pretty much, Oregon has open carry, so I carried it in that fashion. Um, I did not have a long gun, just a pistol for personal protection. There are wild animals around and about. We would run across deer coming pretty close to the fence lines, coyotes also. I don't believe anybody tried to shoot one or anything, but I understand, I'm from Texas, so I'm familiar with rattlesnakes. I understood Oregon had some rattlesnakes in the area also. I didn't see any of those. A few jackrabbits here and there, but yeah, that's about it. Of course, the wildlife, there was the grazing of the deer and the birds being around, but it's.
And so what made you leave the refuge? What made you decide to come back into town?
Well, I really didn't. I was tasked with kind of guarding the family of gospel singers that was going up to the meeting in John Day, Oregon, and we left about 3 p.m. that day with the family. We met up with 2 Wyoming ranchers, and we were the first group out. Like I say, we left roughly 3 o'clock. My belief is that probably 15 minutes behind us was Lavoie's truck, and then behind them was going to be another vehicle, and I really don't know who was in there, and how they were separating people, but it was going to be 3 of our vehicles, and then we were meeting up with the ranchers, so a total of 4. We somehow made it through the. While I didn't see any law enforcement on the way up there myself, just maybe a few rancher trucks coming out of their properties. We obviously made it through, and they didn't. Seeing in hindsight, looking at the drone footage, it was pretty obvious they were watching us. But like I say, I guess they were interested more in the leadership people than a group of children that were gonna and a mother that was gonna speak or sing at the meeting that they were holding.
So what's your conclusion regarding the death of Lavoie Finicum?
Well, it's hard to tell exactly from the drone footage. I believe that there's some discrepancy. I see how the police were trying to make the initial stop, but when the people inside were trying to comply and they were still getting shot at, my belief is why they fled the first scene. There was at that point there's really no more need to comply if you're not, getting some kind of, uh, uh, in-kind response from the police. If you're doing your part, then they should be doing theirs as well. It didn't look, from that first, incident with Ryan Payne that there was any showing of a gun that might have, threatened the police. I don't want to badmouth the police and what they're doing, because they do a needed job in society. But at the same time, when we're getting into instances like this, and I understand they get wound up and also in what they're doing, that as the adrenaline flows and the incident continued, it looked like it escalated to a point that it wasn't really a stop anymore. It looked like it turned into something else, honestly. Um, the only gun I ever saw Lavoie carry was like a 6-shooter in his holster, and I don't know about this other 9mm they say they found, but that's the only way I saw him walking around on the property. Exactly, like I say, I can't tell from the drone footage exactly what happened, but my view on it is he just wasn't causing that much of a threat, and why did they open up the way they did on the rest of the vehicle with people inside? That bothers me as well. That in my mind is inappropriate.
And you also mentioned that there was found that you think the FBI planted a gun on the...
Well, that's what people are saying. Apparently some people here have traced the serial number of that gun, and it was stolen several years ago. I'm not saying that they planted it. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right, because as I saw him walk around the compound, he was in that cowboy style. He had his holster and his 6-shooter, and that's the only way I ever saw him, displaying a gun. I never saw him with a holstered 9mm. There was plenty of other people that had that, but I never saw him with that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate being able to interview you. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.